shining. You can take me anywhere. You're making me feel like
Hi, everybody. The workshop is about to begin, everybody. So we're going to ask you for quiet so we can focus. Since we're talking about boundaries, we're going to turn down the music here. Can everybody hear my voice in the room? Thank you. If you're here for lights, camera, boundaries, come on up and grab a seat. Grab a seat. We are recording this, everybody, so this will live forever on the internets. And, no press. Everybody in the back who's eating and hanging out, we'd love to invite you to settle in. This is one of those workshop times where we'd love to have a quiet space so that people could focus and hear and take notes on all that stuff. Welcome to BraveMaker once again. If you missed our earlier introductions, this is the 7th annual BraveMaker Film Festival. And we have, for the past few years, been starting off with a mental health panel. And by the way, Megan, that microphone I'm told is usable right there too. So we can pull that mic. Yep. So 3 people can share 2 mics. But we're going to talk a little bit about psychological and physical and emotional safety as it pertains to being a filmmaker. And we really want this also to extend into the film festival culture, because some of you might know film festivals are very similar to film sets. They can be stressful. I am constantly getting calls and emails, and I'm problem solving. And I have things like, oh, this fell through. This isn't working. This smells. How can we do whatever we can do to change it? So our hope is, and if we could quiet down in the back, I'm not trying to in any way like point fingers, but I really would like us to have a space in the workshop where people can hear and listen. And if you are here, come forward and sit. Be with us in the space so we can see faces if you're comfortable with that. And if not, that's fine too. But let me introduce our panelists, or have you introduce yourselves. I'll start. My name is Tony Gapastone, pronouns he, him, his. I also like to do a quick physical description for those who might just be listening. I'm a Caucasian guy wearing a black shirt that says BraveMaker, black glasses, and I have a pink lanyard, and I'm tattooed Caucasian. And I am a filmmaker, writer, director, actor.
I am Nikki Lynette. Pronouns are she, her, hers. For those who are listening and can't see, I'm a black chick with dreads with a really cool hat. Yes. And I am a playwright, filmmaker, and mental health activist.
And we'll have her film debuting tonight with live performance at 10 p.m., everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Ondersma. I'm an intimacy coordinator. My pronouns are she, her. I am so grateful to be here, and I work in film and theater, so I might be referencing some strategies that come from the theater world. And before I did intimacy, as many of you know, that's a pretty new niche position in both theater and film. And before that, I was a theater director and also worked in health and safety in film.
Hello. Oh, hey, artists. Lovely to see you. My name is Megan Reese. I am a licensed therapist. I'm also a screenwriter and occasional filmmaker. And I am a light-skinned blonde woman. I have longish, wavy-ish, dishwater blonde hair. If you're a Prince fan, you know why I chose those words. And I'm wearing a very tropical dress to go with my very tropical feeling temperature at the moment.
Because it is a little humid in here. Yes, we appreciate that. Well, let's start out. And by the way, we would love you to have questions and interactions as we continue to have this conversation. But let's just start out kind of high level, talking about what we mean when we talk about boundaries. Why are these things important? We did some brainstorming, and we had a Google Doc going on. And before Nikki was involved, we had a Zoom, and we were talking about all these different elements of life in general is really hard and stressful. And these things tend to get exasperated. I am exasperated right now, to be honest. There is so many things, like when it comes to being a creative person, that impact us. And we don't have proper HR. We don't have really good training around this kind of stuff. And it's so, so important. So let's just talk about what those things mean for you. Like, set some definitions around boundaries and what it looks like to have those in physical, emotional, and professional spaces. Who would like to start?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, we have a slide.
Oh, yeah.
We have a slide
Heather
change?
made slides.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you, Heather.
That's very rudimentary. Okay, so I'll just, because I'm talking. So physical boundaries, that's what I'm actually dealing with all the time, talking to actors about their physical boundaries and what they feel confident bringing into the space. I try not to use the word comfortable because I think making art, people are often vulnerable. Sometimes our most exciting work is working in a space that's not necessarily comfortable, but we do want it to be sustainable, and we want people to be confident and willing. And then let's pass it to somebody else for emotional or professional boundaries.
I think I could speak more on professional boundaries. I mean, I guess emotional too. I live with a mental illness, and I'm neurodivergent, and I'm a woman and I'm black. And there are, in that identity, a lot of excuses to excuse me and not listen to me. And so what I would love to speak to is for all of us as people that are growing and evolving, is to never let nobody convince you that your self-advocacy is you having an attitude or being a bitch. Your self-advocacy is part of how you're even able to execute the fullness of your idea. And I think that we exist in a time, especially like as women, like, or as queer people, like if we were like a cisgendered, heterosexual, upright, standing white guy, then it would like, oh, you're a Renaissance person and you're so assertive. But because, you know, you exist in a body that is subject to respectability politics, you can often be made to feel that your self-advocacy, whether it be for your comfort, for the execution of your idea, for you being treated with respect, is diva shit, and we're not doing that.
Try to bring it a little closer maybe and see if that helps.
Yeah, that, when I was close, oh shit, I'm loud. Okay,
They're mixing it, they're mixing it.
okay, cool. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna be talking about.
Am I supposed to follow that? Yeah, I mean, +1 to everything that was just said. Whew, Lord. I do a lot of workplace consulting, so like inclusion is a big part of that. And what Nikki was saying, like, can we please get to the other side of policing some identities more than others so that we can all create and do our best work? I think, you know, you didn't ask about triggers, and we're talking about boundaries, but I'm just thinking about how easily triggered people can become in urgent situations. And we all know that filmmaking and theater making can sometimes be quite urgent. We all know that time is money, and we are surrounded by these amazing fabricators, and no one can fabricate time yet. So sometimes things can get tense, sometimes voices can get raised, and I just think what might be you blowing off steam could be quite harmful to somebody that you don't know what their history is. So I'm just going to throw in a little conversation about triggers while we're talking about boundaries.
Well, let's talk about like the uniquenesses about those factors when it comes to set, especially. When one thing that comes to my mind is, especially I'm experiencing that now, is, you know, this is our dream, right? We're living our dreams. Film work and being on set and being theater. I know you were in New York, and Nikki's got some really cool things happening with some of her work. It elevates it to sometimes a place where we excuse or we ignore some of these triggers or some of these signs or some of these challenges to our mental, emotional, and physical health because it's in the name of art. It's in the name of living our dreams. I know many of us, and I've done this too. I've pressed boundaries to get the shot. Let's just stay an extra hour, because then we don't have to come back tomorrow. And meanwhile, we're going on hour 14 or whatever. And I've seen the error of my ways. I've actually had to apologize to people for doing such things. But let's just start about that. Like when we come to, and on the screen, this awesome slide right here, there are certain things that, you know, we don't allow people to say no. We pressure them in creative spaces. So yeah, let's just comment on that, the uniqueness of the arts and how we sometimes find ourselves being pressured and or pressure ourselves to do things we don't want to do.
We could probably go forward in the slides and maybe come back to this one, because I think the next one's really addressing some of the things that are tricky about being on a film set. So often, I think because of money, we feel like we don't have enough time. We make these schedules that are not always realistic. They don't build in enough contingency time. I don't think there's anybody who's ever made a film who was like, we finished on time, we got everything done, every single day, every single stage. I just feel like it always feels like a win if we like make the day the way we thought we were. The few times we've ever experienced we're ahead I wish that were less rare. And we've also got this, we put up there, we're a family, the myth of we're a family, the things that we sometimes expect of our colleagues or expect of ourselves, because we've somehow created, because we're doing this work that is so personal and we're being storytellers, we feel a different connection than if we were, let's say, all accountants together. And so I feel like a lot of these issues, yes, come from top down, come from leadership, but because it's in the culture, it's so hard also to interrogate ourselves and like, how are we sort of self-propagating these harmful practices? Also, just to acknowledge that set hierarchy is a real thing. Everybody knows that certain people hold more power than others, and that's the way it's been for a really long time, and it's hard to, I think, fight against that. Some of it is, I think, a necessary evil, like we do need somebody to lead, and there are people who are making decisions for groups, but let's also see how much can we disrupt that with a more equitable lens and a more acknowledging that if you're asking people to do things when you hold power, sometimes as like indie filmmakers, we maybe don't feel like we have that much power, but the second we're asking people to be somewhere, if we have the power to get somebody at a call, then we do have power. And it is hard for people who know that more power, that they're lower on this hierarchy, to push back against things that are being asked of them and to truly, truly be giving consent. If there's a power dynamic difference, true consent gets very tricky.
I have like 1,000 things I wanted to say in response to that. As I was driving here, I was thinking of the book Burn It Down by Mo Ryan. If you haven't read that, it's a big recommend. And it's about TV writers' rooms. So that's a little different than what we're talking about on set. But it is about the power dynamic and the imbalance. Imbalance is a word, right? Sorry, I'm also coming to a special time in my life where words are hard to find sometimes. But there is a power imbalance, and we're, California is an at-will state. We can, like, the PA could be, gone the next day, and how or why? Because somebody has the power to do that. So there's always the threat and acknowledgement of power at all times. And I think that historically, some parts of the industry have really, can I curse on this? Okay, have really prioritized the brilliant asshole. And can we just move past that? Because there's some brilliant people who are not assholes and who are very collaborative and who know that the most beautiful art comes when we collaborate and when everyone feels empowered to create together. And this like a family thing, please, if that's the thing that you say, I want to just invite you to think about that a little bit, because family means something different to everybody in this room. There are people in this room, your attention might be like, oh, we're a family because, in my family, we all get together and play Monopoly on Thanksgiving, and it's a wonderful time, and we all love each other, and there's no dysfunction. That's not the most common experience. So when you start talking about family, you're bringing up stuff, it's charged, it might mean different things to different people, it might mean a lot of dysfunction, and at the end of the day, you're not family. You're working together to create something. That doesn't mean you can't get close, you can't be friendly, you can't learn about each other, you can't be vulnerable together, but you're not my family, and that's probably a good thing.
I wonder about different ways to use or talk about that, because I definitely have felt both sides of what you're saying. And I really love the chosen family phrase. People who've used that, especially in the queer community, will talk about that after not being in healthy families growing up. And in some sense, when we're creating together, it does feel like we're choosing to be. How can we take the positive sides of what good attributes and characteristics of family can be? But I did have a friend who said he felt very strongly. I don't like the family term on set. It makes me feel like I'm in a abusive relationship because that's what I grew up, having my dad or having my mom do whatever to make me do whatever they wanted. And so he's like, I can do team, even though there's a lot of dysfunctional teams. Like, I can do team better than family is what he said. And I thought that's so interesting. So we don't know what people are feeling, and that could be triggersome. But I think it's, I don't know. I do like creating community. Like, we're a community. And in our most healthiest spaces, I hope BraveMaker is a community. And if it's a positive word for you to have, like, I want a positive family, then I go embrace it. But if it's not, then tell us. I don't know. I think it's a really dicey thing.
Could we take a poll
Of
this room?
Great.
So if I asked you, if I were to say, we're like a family here, can I see a show of hands of people who are like, yeah, that's great, I love that? On set? Like, what's the context? Yeah, on set. Or in a writer's room. Honestly, before today, yes. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry if I ruined it for you.
That's so interesting, though. But only one person? No, let's say yes. Let's say some hands. Okay. 5, 6, 7.
And then for people who wouldn't feel comfortable or don't like that or feel triggered in some way by that, can we see your hands?
We're a film family. How many of you don't like that? Now? Okay, so 50-50. Yeah.
So for those of you listening at home, the majority was in the second camp.
Any comments you want to make on that, Nikki? Okay. All right, let's go back to the other slide about consent. Feels like it. Last week, we were doing a parade. Y'all, the things that we do as creative people to try to market and, oh my goodness, we did and have been doing a 4th of July parade, and some people in the same way, like, I don't celebrate 4th of July, but I'll come out and wear a costume in the parade to draw attention to the film festival. It was so fun. I was Captain Jack Sparrow. And I was, interacting with the audience, felt like I was at Disneyland. At one point, I felt myself come up to some people, and I don't know, I put my arm around a person. I was like, hey, I'm talking like, got some rum or whatever. And it hit me, consent. I was like, oh my gosh, I am going up to perfect strangers and putting my arm around them. And at one point, a guy put my hand on his head. After the second time I did that, I was like, I gotta be saying, can I put my arm around you? Can I touch you? And it triggered me to this conversation about how consent, we often put that into the realm of romantic and sexual relationships, but it's really everything. You can't, I'm a hugger, but to say I'm into a room, hey, I'm a hugger, and I start hugging everybody without asking people, that is blowing through boundaries. So let's talk about this consent stuff.
Okay, so this is another really big part of my job. So I reference Planned Parenthood here, and of course that's for a different context, but it really, I think, fits well when you're talking to actors about what they think they feel about what is being asked in the script, what is potentially being asked by the director. So we break it down. Planned Parenthood is an acronym, FRIES. Freely given, which means it's not coerced, revocable, or I think they actually use a different word that starts with an R, but to mean that it can change. Consent is not a thing that never changes. How you feel one day may change the next day, may change. Before you start the shoot, you think, no, I could never XYZ. 3 weeks later, you're with this group of people, and your feelings about that have changed one way or the other way. That consent is always informed. You can't consent to something you don't know. So when you're, I think about like casting notices and being very clear, even as a writer, potentially what your vision is. Then they kiss, then they XYZ. Often I'm working on scripts where there's simulated sex. So they, whatever, passionately, passion is not factual. Passion is interpretive. So the clearer we can be about what it means, the better for the people. You're just giving them the information that they need.
Can I consent?
Of course.
Interject here?
Of course.
That's a great, for us writers, right? We talk about this a lot on the page, And sometimes people will say, you know, one little, that they have sex. Well, what do you want? You have to be, as a writer, you have to be clear about what the audience is going to see, especially if you're not directing this thing. But even if you are, actors are going to read that. If they're going to consider auditioning for this role, what does that look like? We see her grab his arm. We see him caress his neck. We see her caress her side. We see him go down on his knees, whatever. All of those things should be written in a script. And so as writers, how many of you are screenwriters? Let's have your hands up. Yeah, we're doing the Screenwriters Rant Room tomorrow. We have screenwriters panels. These are things to be talking about that you don't sometimes think about, that trickle down, that really help create safe psychological, physiological, or create safer sets with our words. So thank you for pointing that out.
And it's the same. Oh, we have Mars in the audience.
Oh, thank you very much. I was just saying there's a delicate balance between having nothing in the script except, and then they have sex, and then as an intimacy coordinator, as actors, you're kind of like, and what's the expectation? And that's where intimacy coordinators come in and communicate with directors. But also on the other end, if you're overly prescriptive, then that makes it really difficult for your actors to act and to, as intimacy coordinators and on set, to create that safe container that actors can then operate freely within and do their best work.
Thank you, Mars. What else on consent here? There's some assumptions. Was it that I already missed this? Oh, sounds kind of silly, but even food, right? There's a sense of on sets, we don't often make time to think about what are the allergies here. It's like we're so cheap. Can we just get pizza? Who can bring granola bars or a trail mix from Costco? And then, I've had to learn the hard way too, not asking those questions, that it just creates an unsafe set where people don't feel like they can advocate for themselves. Just like you said, Nikki, they can't speak up for what they need.
I also think, and it might not be popular, but that's fine. I think that you get to have boundaries around feedback. Like, I don't consent to your feedback in this moment. Like, when we're in the messiness of creating, and this is probably like for those of us that are screenwriting, those of us that are like who work in process, getting feedback at every step of the way can almost feel like being like monitored or micromanaged. And like, I don't consent to that experience. I am here to be able to show up, and I can consent to you, depending on who's offering that feedback, right? Like, but those of us that are like new in the field, or like not yet reached a level of success where people know that they can leave us alone, like, we have to deal with feedback every step of the way, and you have to actually have boundaries around that, I think, and have the language to be able to say, you know what, I really do value your feedback. I'm going to go ahead and complete the thought, get the full thing out there, and then, because that's a consent thing too. That's a boundary thing too. And no one told me that. I had to learn it along the way.
I think that's a great thing, again, thinking about like the hugs. Do you want a hug? I'm going to backtrack here and circle back to this, but I have kids. My wife is a teacher and educator, and often would tell me, I grew up in a culture where it was like, go hug your uncle, go hug so-and-so, give so-and-so a hug. Who is this person I'm hugging? I don't know. Friend of my dad's, right? And I was hugging all these people, and when I became a parent, my wife was like, no, we don't do that. They don't have to hug anybody. Give them a choice. Put the choice in there. Do you want to hug, or do you want to high five, or do you want to do nothing? That's fine, on you. Those little things have trickled down into our life and our humanity and our creative work and all that kind of stuff. But getting consent on anything and everything when you come into a space, I think, is important. Can I give you some feedback? Is now a good time to receive feedback? Are you willing to receive feedback? We don't always like to hear the word no in the film world, as actors, as creatives. We hear a no enough, so we kind of make people say yes by how we phrase things or how we don't ask them questions. And so I'm learning too. I still feel like I've definitely failed a lot in this area, but I'm trying to get better. And one of my favorite phrases a friend of mine gave me in regards to feedback is, obviously there's now a good time. Are you willing to hear feedback? But if you were willing to listen and I knew you wouldn't get offensive, I have some feedback for you. Let me know if there's a good time for that. I really like that because and I'm in a position of power a lot of times. I need people to not feel afraid to tell me things. And I don't hope I'm not defensive, but if you're in a position of power, people don't feel comfortable. But if they have a phrase that could lighten it to say, hey, if I knew you'd listen and I knew you wouldn't get defensive, I have something for you.
A little bit of an addendum, I think, and I don't know if this is what you were alluding to, Nikki, but some people who have neurodivergent brains, myself included, context switching is really hard. So if I'm like in this context and you come at me with something that's like two things later or some total tangent, like I have lost the focus of what I'm trying to do right now. So just know that some people like need time to switch gears or need to their own process to be able to switch gears. So just wanted to add to that. And I think, you know, to your point, Tony, I don't know about the part about the if I knew you weren't going to get defensive. I think as you could just leave it at asking if it's a good time, right? Because it's almost like they can tell you like I'm just not in a mode where I can hear it right now, or I'm in the middle of 14 other things that have to get done so that this thing gets done. And you know, like there's like this beautiful mind thing going on in my brain sometimes. So that's kind of what I would add to that.
I get triggered with, can we talk? That doesn't work for me. In a text or in person, can we talk? It's like finish the sentence. Hey, can we talk about feedback? Can we talk about that conversation? Can we talk about the call sheet? Can we talk about what we said in class? Can we talk about the character? Can we talk about the wardrobe? But just the can we talk question mark, I get like, triggered.
I mean, that's like, sorry, I'm going to shut up. I feel like I'm talking too much. But like the cornerstone of psychological safety is that people feel like they can bring stuff up. And so you want to make a space where people feel like they can say what they need to say. They can flag a problem. They can, you know, sometimes feedback is necessary. It may be a safety issue, right? So creating a space where people can raise their hand for something. But the other part of psychological safety is like clarity and there's another C word I want to use that's somewhere in my brain. But like, when people don't know what you're talking about or referencing and you say something like, can we talk, and you're in a position of power, they're gonna fill in the blank. And sometimes what they're gonna fill in the blank with is much worse than what's actually going on. And then you get someone who's like totally in their nervous system response because you said, can we talk? And they're like, oh, I'm getting fired. When you're like, no, I really love what you did over here and I wanna do more of that, right? So I think context and clarity is really helpful, and then people will want to come to you when they have stuff.
Let's talk about those practical things about how we can make boundaries. Like it's good communication, it's clear expectations, all these, you know, let's talk about some of those things unless you wanted to add before I move on.
Yeah, so something that in the intimacy field a lot of people have embraced is really trying to reframe asking those yes-no questions, really trying to ask an open question, which is sometimes hard for us when we're pressured by time. It feels like our brains are trying to condense time, so we're saying, is it okay if XYZ? We want to elicit a yes-no, right? But often, especially if the person who's asking that question holds more power, the person receiving that question is just going to answer probably yes, or whatever we think that the other person wants to hear without really examining, taking the time to think about it. Actors are trained, yes, and because somebody else is ready for that job if I am high maintenance or prove to be difficult. But if you ask someone, how does it sound to you, or how do you feel about XYZ, then they actually are prompted to think about it and respond with something other than just a yes, no, hopefully avoiding being in a more flight or fight, fawn response. Before we change the slide, I think we kind of covered the specific or the contextual, that if you are agreeing to something, we really need the information. Like, is it okay? Can you work 12 hours tomorrow? That might be different than like, can you work 12 hours tomorrow and where we're working has no AC and everybody's gonna be hot and we're gonna bring a lot of sunscreen and they have so many mosquitoes there. And then the last bullet point, in addition to words, the physical actions, the body language, the prosody, like how you say something. Sure, pizza is great for second meal. Actually, it didn't even sound that genuine. Sure, pizza's great for a second meal. I love pizza, that's awesome. Sure, pizza's great for a second meal. I mean, you need to listen to more than just what the words on the page are to really understand if people are consenting or not. Okay, so just my little acknowledgement so nobody thinks I made up fries because I certainly did not. That's from Planned Parenthood. RAIN is an anti-sexual violence network. They have a lot of amazing resources around consent and like what to do when you you are witnessing something that does not seem consensual, which I think, I mean, I know that those organizations it's all about something that we hope is never happening on a film set, but is still applicable. And then if anybody wants a fun little, like, somebody made this amazing 10-minute short about consent, and it's called Tea and Consent. Yeah, before we move on. Thank you.
Next slide. Anyone ever felt unsafe on a set? Yeah, hand over there. Unsafe emotionally, unsafe physically, unsafe sexually? Anybody? I'm sure we all have things we might not want to raise our hands on. How can we do this better? How can we, I'll tell you from my POV as a filmmaker, director, it's exhausting, we all know, just doing things in general. And I think I have really good intentions. I try to over-communicate. I try to get as much information out there as possible. I'm trying to look around. Is there chords? Can we tape down? What things, if you were to say, like to a director, could be done better? And I've got to work with Heather, by the way, on 3 different shorts with our BraveMaker Academy, doing some intimate scenes, some simulated intimacy, which has been really cool. So I'm learning this too, and it's really fun. It takes time. You have to make space to be able to film this well and honor the crew and the cast that's doing it. And that's one thing that's like, if I could do better, I just wish we had, we could extend a shoot that was planned for 2 days onto 4 days and have 10-hour days and not 12. Do you think we're just doing too much? Do you think as a director we just need to be more realistic and shoot less and write less and make shorter films? Shorter shorts are really good. I like short shorts. Because it feels like it's really hard to do it unless we dream. It feels so whiny, but dream less or do less, or I don't know, right? Am I what's the word? Am I just over preparing, overdoing it, biting off too much?
I think that sorry to cut you off. I think that the more we can front load, the more we can do before we actually get on the set, we sometimes will save the time. Like I don't always think it's just a matter of money. Everybody who walked in today had the opportunity to get a name tag. Yes, there was money in the budget for those name tags and for the markers, but that's not a big expense. I'm so grateful every time I go on a film set and their name tags are an option. I think especially because I'm usually day playing, I'm not usually there for the whole shoot, but everybody's in that position the first few days. Nobody knows anybody, they only know the names of the people they've worked with before. So I don't think all of the solutions come down to a question of money, but it does come down to like mindful thinking, mindful language. Like, is it more difficult to rephrase your question? Until you get into the habit, yeah, it is a little trickier to say, how do you feel about a 12-hour day tomorrow? in the humidity with the mosquitoes instead of, is that okay? I think our next slide talks about some pre-production solutions.
Megan, you look like you had something to say.
Well, now I want to know what's on the next slide, but I mean, I plus one to that, and I think my filmmaking experience has been limited to the Bay Area, where I got to work with a bunch of Bay Area filmmakers, and Bay Area filmmakers will drop everything from my experience to work on a film if it comes to town, right? So often the people around you know stuff about locations, about traffic, about all this kind of stuff, aside from what's their area of specialty in the crew. They probably know lots of the little quirks about filming here. So again, making space for people to be able to raise concerns like, hey, I know we have this like company move, and did you know that the bathroom at our first location is kind of janky, and we're all going to be in line trying to use the bathroom before we get in the car, and then we're going to be in traffic, like to be able to like really elicit that stuff and make space for people to share their wisdom. And I think the wisdom can come from all kinds of places. So that was my addendum too.
Nikki, you have a film called Happy Songs About Unhappy Things, and you've got some lived experience as a creator, and you talk a lot about in your, this is all public, so I'm not divulging anything, but you talk about playing the happy creator, and not showing signs. Elaborate a little bit when you look at some of these things on these practical tips. What comes to mind for you as someone who's been on a journey and is now sharing about how deep and dark it got when it came to your psychological safety?
I mean, I had to do just a fuck ton of therapy anyway, because I'm a suicide survivor. So, like, I came into the film industry boundaried up. One thing, because I work across theater, film, and the music industry, and one thing that came up for me that I realized pretty early is, like, who does it benefit for us to lack confidence? Who directly benefits from our inability to say that doesn't work for me, or our willingness to work extra hours, but that's not what we signed up for, or our willingness to accept less money? It benefits the people who want to exploit talent to make money for themselves. It seldom benefits you. I can't think of one situation where lacking confidence actually benefited me. So, like, can I tell you a secret? I mean, it's not gonna be a secret because you're recording it. When I did my last film, I decided to give myself mediocre white male privilege. And I did that, not white male privilege, specifically mediocre white male privilege. I need that level
Explain
of
and
audacity.
define.
Okay. Mediocre white male privilege is like, and this is, okay, so like, I was showrunner on my last film. I had no experience doing that job. But I was like, dude, if I was like some mediocre white dude, I would just be like, hey, I'm finna learn on the job. I'm gonna get paid to learn. I'm gonna assume that I know what to do, and then I'm gonna surround myself with the proper team of people to pad my lack of knowledge, and it just so happened to work. And so ever since 2023, every year I renegotiate. Do I need mediocre white male privilege this year? Yes. Yes, I do. Because, like, if I gave myself exceptional black woman privilege, I'd be doing every goddamn thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would do every job. I would wear every hat. I would be afraid to delegate because I'd be afraid things wouldn't get done. I would be trying to be the nice girl, trying to make sure everybody's taken care of. No. Mediocre white male privilege. I'm gonna do what I said I would do and find the other people to do the things that I can't do to get what I said do. And the reason I bring that up is because, like, it's really just the privilege that the confidence and audacity that come with having a privileged life. And we kind of need to assume that when we're creating, your creativity, your insecurity only has space in your creativity if you're creating about it, right? Like, we're trying to be the most realized versions of ourselves. Do you really want to leave something on the table when you finally got the budget and you're working on something? Lacking confidence will have you do it. And And so I kind of just had to have the audacity. And when I went through it, when making my film, you know, I mean, I went through it to write my musical, and I got it signed to a Broadway producer. Like, audacity is important. Get her done. And so, like, that's even why I agreed to do this panel, because most of us wait until we successful to do the confidence thing. I think you become successful by doing the confidence thing first and allowing the world to show up for what you're capable of.
Yeah, give it up for that comment.
Yeah, I've been doing some workshops around confidence for people, and I explicitly want to have creatives, big-hearted people, and people who society likes to shut down because we haven't learned how to take up space. And whenever you take up space, how many people behind you benefit from the space that you've taken up? We all benefit from the space that Nikki's taken up, right? And especially people that hold similar identities. So we have to take up space for everyone who comes behind us, for everyone who looks like us, for everyone who has similar shared lived experience. So if you can't do it for yourself yet, do it for everybody who's watching.
And that leads me to, how can we set these protocols, right? How do we call this out? I'm trying and aware, because I lead a film festival, and I'm a filmmaker, and I've been to film festivals. I know that there are predators everywhere and in these spaces to exploit, to take advantage. So one little small thing I'm trying to do is just call it out. Like, hey, today, this weekend, if you see anyone who looks like they're in a place without a voice, let's speak it out. Let's ask if they're okay. When we're on set, I might do something that might be short or curt or devaluing to you. Please let me know. I want to do better. But if there's anyone else on this set that ever says something, or at this fest, to make you feel small or to take advantage or to in any way demean you, then tell me, because I want to write it. Those are the pathways. Like, we want to tell people, like, these are how to do it. If you have reporting questions or challenges, or someone's asking something of you, or if I'm a producer on this feature right now that's filming in production, and I was working with these actors who are from Taiwan and from the East Coast, and I'd never worked with them before. I know what I like to do as a director is I want my team to support me. So I just told the actors, like, hey, if you ever have any concern, I know these are long days. If you're ever feeling like you don't have a voice, please let me know, because sometimes we make things or say things that don't feel like you have a voice. So I'm trying to establish those pathways, and it takes a few minutes to do it when you're doing a safety meeting. And we should be doing safety meetings, right? So any other thoughts around how to establish those reporting pathways?
Yeah, I think it requires a context shift. Like, would you be afraid to ask for what you need if you understood that you belonged where you are? Like, if you understood that you added value to the space, would you ever feel uncomfortable to say, hey, I thought that we had a 15-minute break? You see what I'm saying? And so, like, and part of that comes from, and again, like, if this is disruptive, forgive me, but I don't really care. Everybody is constantly thinking about, oh, I can't wait to make it in the industry. I can't wait we are the industry.
You're in it.
It is 2025.
Yeah.
They ain't got money like they used to get. We still got, we're out here, we're doing the work, we're making the plans, we're finding the resources to do the things. We're taking on the cost of opportunities. Coming here today wasn't free, whether you had to book a flight or take a Uber. Like, we're the industry. It's happening right now. What, you don't belong until you make a blockbuster? You don't belong until you get cast in some big hit thing? Like, you add value right now. Yeah. So you get to take that 15-minute break to pee. You get to speak up and say, actually, I have to eat a gluten-free diet. I'm going to need somebody to accommodate that. So what can we do to get that handled? And if we actually did that at this level, that actually shifts the culture and it shifts the norms. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. Yep. It's disrupting and it's reshaping and saying this is what needs to happen and this is what is going to happen. And the hope is, I'm sorry, can I touch you like that? The hope is people are going, hey, I was a part of Nikki's set. I know now what can be. And then the ripple is they start to replicate that. And then we all start going, no, I'm not compromising because I know I've tasted and seen what is good and what should be, right? And I think that's a cool, positive, forward impact we can have. Yeah?
Yeah, it is happening, right? I mean, is every set perfect? No, but it's happening. It's not the same. Anybody who's been around a while knows that sets 20 years ago, not the same. Not the same. And then sometimes you walk onto these sets and you're like, wait, what year is it? But it is changing. I think we can go to the next slide. It's maybe yeah, we're talking about. I feel like we've already hit some of these things. Normalizing speaking up, even for small things, establishing reporting pathways. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about that. I find that kind of complicated. Well, I think we've.
Not about this, but previous slide, I just wanted to jump in and sort of give a yes. I don't need a mic, really. I don't think I do.
For people who are
Just the thing that about the pre-production time for making space for the production time. Like Tony was asking, oh, do I need to dream less? Do I need to do less? Do I make shorter films? Be less ambitious in my projects? And your answer to that, which it came through and then, the discussion happened and it was wonderful, was, well, no, that a lot can be done in the pre-production time so that you don't have to sacrifice your vision, as it were. And I just wanted to say, yes, ma'am, and second that, because there's so much, in my experience, there's so much time lost on sets when the work hasn't been put into the pre-production, when plans, the best laid plans can always go awry, right? But then you also have a plan A, B, C through Z for when things go wrong. And I'm not casting any judgment in how people run their sets, but it really is helpful when everyone coming in to the first day of filming is very much organized with to make things just go smoother, and then you can have your big dreams, because not so much time is wasted finding the Band-Aids or whatever.
We have about 10 more minutes left. I'm going to turn it over to some questions in a minute. And what I'd like to do is quickly, I think we have a slide on this, but the ideas of sets often cause problems and can get challenging because we're tired, we're overworked, we're burnt out, and we don't want to make these signs of heroes, right? We often, and I'm feeling that too myself, and I'm like so challenged because I don't know if will I get a chance to have a full focus to do a pre-production. Like I've been on 2 films for features, and I haven't had like a week of focused pre-production on either of them because I'm working other jobs. Even like the festival, I was like, to be honest, be totally transparent, I was like, I would love a full week of post-production. Like some of us just got here on Wednesday into the building, and if we had a whole week, oh my gosh. And we go, well, we shouldn't do it if we don't get a whole week. Then honestly, we can't do it. So we got to change somewhere, and it takes a lot of deep thinking. I don't think we're going to solve that here, but it's a lot of going like we got to put our heads together and figure this out, because all of us are working other jobs. I have 2 other jobs that I'm working outside of this, right? So let's talk about, and if people have time, there is, we have this space until 4 o'clock. Okay, so you can do some breakout sessions, but I wanted to do some questions. I'm going to turn it over to you. I have to get going because I have to change and then go meet Marley Matlin for the pre-screening for stuff tonight. But this is so invaluable, and this is now going to live on our YouTube channel. But I'm going to give my mic over here to Nikki Quinn. So Nikki is now going to have my mic, and you all can facilitate questions and responses, okay?
Do we have any questions?
Thank you. Quick question. How do you run rehearsals for intimate scenes to keep kind of everybody happy? You know, director, cast, crew, everyone that like needs to be there to watch blocking that might not. How do you kind of make everyone feel safe and do it right, but also keep everyone happy?
Okay, so wait, can I? Yeah, Mars is also an intimacy coordinator who's in the audience. So Mars and I probably do some things the same way and some things differently. Yeah, rehearsal. Okay, so it ranges, right? Like I always, depending on what the scene is, if two actors are kissing and that's all they're doing and they're grown people, I'm not probably going to ask for a rehearsal ahead of time. I would hope that there'd be a rehearsal on the day of the shoot. If it's a complicated scene, I really try to get a rehearsal ahead of time, if possible, because that's also like a money-saving technique. Yeah, you're gonna pay me and you're gonna pay your actors. Maybe they're probably already going to be rehearsing. Just bring me in for an hour and let's figure out how this is happening, because we can really get more work done without feeling like we're spending, you know, obviously a rehearsal is a much lower price point than what's happening on set day of. But let's just say our rehearsal is only the day of. I usually try to encourage like that rehearsal, hopefully, initially, is the actors, the director, and me. Maybe DP, depending on what's going on. And like at a certain point, yes, let's bring the DP in, or let's at least talk to the DP to know what they're thinking about. I mean, I feel like sounds like a cop-out, but it just depends, right? If we know we have one camera, we know that like this is happening this way, then maybe the DP doesn't need to be there for the rehearsal. But if the DP is like, hey, the DP is free, why wouldn't you have the DP there? And as far as like, again, it depends. Is it happening in a shower, like, is it a complicated situation? Maybe we need people from other departments for the rehearsal. We don't want to waste time. You just have to think about it. Like, is it going to save time if we figure this out in rehearsal? Or can we just get this like vulnerable work with a very smaller group of people, and then when we shoot it, we bring everybody in who needs to be there for their job? I mean, it's also like, again, it's a kiss between two actors who are both seasoned actors, and they're both over the age of 25. Most actors are probably okay with like, whoever needs to be there is fine. Let's say it's something much more vulnerable, like it's non-consensual and your actors are like 18 and 20 or have a huge age difference or there's a huge power imbalance. Then we really want to be more mindful about who's in the room, right? You don't want people who are in like very vulnerable state of undress for their role with like a huge number of people in the room if you can avoid it. And also that care is not just for the actors. You want your crew you need to think about your crew too. I know intimacy people who say, oh, I'm there for actors, I'm not there for crew. Crew, they have their own union. On maybe a really big shoot, maybe that's true. Again, I say it depends, because not every single crew member is down for to witness the reenactment of some really challenging material, and it doesn't even need to fall in the realm of intimacy. I mean, it can be something that they have lived experience with. I had on a slide there before, assume there's lived experience in the room, because there probably is. Even if you have not had the lived experience, you don't know, and you're not gonna ask, you may never know, but there may be somebody in the room who is not gonna have a great day if they have to witness the recreation of something that they've actually experienced in real life or had a close friend experience in real life. And if you've got a crew that's, you know, has multiple people in a department, which even the tiniest indies usually do, they should be able to step out if that is not a scene. So that's also in the pre-production, right? We're putting this in call sheets, we're putting this in the script, we're checking in with people, we're not assuming everybody's read the script. Maybe they got hired 2 days ago and haven't read the script. We're making sure that in the safety meeting we're talking about what is going to be filmed that day. And taking 30 seconds in the safety meeting is not going to change your budget radically, but may change the fact that now your crew is off balance because they just witnessed something being recreated that if they had known that that was a part of the day, maybe they would have said, hey, can I just like clap and leave? Or can this person step in for me in the department? Okay, now I'm the one who needs to give up their mic.
I just want to celebrate and then extend everything you just said. First of all, yes to all of that. Previously, Tony had asked about like budget, and as you mentioned, you know, do we have to restrict our dreams because of our budget, et cetera? And I'm sure you would agree with me. If you hire an intimacy coordinator on your set, you save time and money. If you invest, as you said previously, in an intimacy coordinator, then your rehearsal is shorter, your on-set time is shorter, your safety meeting is shorter. Literally everything is shorter. So I have a meeting with the director and anyone else on crew I need, and then I have, you know, pre-pro with the actors, and then, you know, the content of the scene goes out on the distro, so crew gets information ahead of time and then confirmed in the safety meeting. But here's an advertisement for intimacy coordinators. We should be on all of your sets, we promise. We're worth it, and you should build us into the budget. If you write in intimacy, you have to have intimacy money. It's, you know, I'm not saying make your films, you know, you can't do it unless you have a bigger budget, but I'm saying you have to have, like, we're as important as cameras and, you know, every other person on that set.
Hello, I want to thank you for being here today and giving us all this great insight and information. I kind of want to touch on a little bit on what Nicole or Nikki? Nikki, on what Nikki mentioned is about the labels and having a lot of different labels. Because I know my daughter, Nicole, is experiencing the same thing with the disability, with the LGBTQ, with, you know, being an actor and being a woman. And so she's just starting in the industry. She wrote a film and started in it a couple years ago. And she would like to do more. And it's difficult because of the labels and finding casting directors and people who see her for who she is and not her label. And I know you have probably struggled through a lot of things, and maybe you have some tips for, you know, just, I know Nicole's very authentic and is her true self, and she doesn't bend to other people's wishes just because she's got a very high moral compass. But I'm here to support her and to support her dreams and finding a way in which she can engage a little bit more than she's had the opportunity to.
I love that you write your own stuff. Like, I love that you create your own films and star in your own films. That's like, I do that too. I wrote my own play, I wrote my own film, and I like to, you know, show up in my own work, because when I do it myself, I know how to cast me. I know what light to present me in. And then I come back with a body of work that is undeniable, an undeniable example of my talent. And even though, like, it takes a lot of resources to constantly make your own stuff, you can also find other independent makers, other independent filmmakers, other independent people that are writing in theater. Like, find other independent people that are doing projects that you like, people that are easily accessible, therefore easy for you to communicate with, like easier. And what happens is you get to build up like a portfolio of your work, and eventually you will run across someone who can't deny excellence. Excellence is highly monetizable. So once you have that body of work and you're able to say, this is something I produced and I starred in, and this is something someone else wrote and I starred in, and this is a clip from a play that I starred in, and this is, like, eventually you have the example. That, because people want proof of concept. So you create your own stuff, you create your own proof of concept. You find other independent makers, you pair up with them. Now you're giving them something because they have a wonderful actor, and now you have more proof of concept. Because the thing about all these interesting labels that all of us have is they'll be weird about wanting to hire us and cast us, but they ain't weird about appropriating it. They're not weird about monetizing it for themselves. So cut me in or cut it out. You see what I'm saying? So you're young and you're talented and you have energy. Build up your body of work. You find a lot of independent filmmakers here. You know what I'm saying? We're getting into more conversations about different identities being able to show up in film and in theater and commercials, content. We're getting more, that's becoming more popular now. So you are adding something. You have a value add. Find these independent makers that want to benefit from your value, and then you will have a stellar reel. And at some point, if you keep going long enough, it's a numbers game, right? Like at some point, somebody gonna want to make money off of you. And that's the first step. So I love that you make your own stuff. Absolutely love that you do. And please keep doing that. And don't let none, especially not none of these people, determine what you're capable of. Because like they're the past, you're literally the future.
Thanks everybody for sharing on this topic. When you were talking initially, I'm a writer, so I see the world in terms of stories. And you started telling this story about, I have a little bit of experience as an actor on a set, mostly extra work, but I got in some productions where I got close, and it's interesting to watch, and I'm a playwright, I've had a dozen plays produced, and so watching how the actors get into the characters and get into the story, and I had this vision that a couple of actors, this is a story now, for short film script, a couple of actors are working on an intimate scene, and then one of them steps out of character because they feel a boundary's been crossed or something and they need to talk about it. And the other actor doesn't understand if they've stepped out of the scene or if they're just improvising. So they improvise back. And then a boundaries expert comes in to talk to them, and it's not clear if this is a third character in the scene and if their interactions with each other are outside of the script and outside of the character, where they're talking about issues of intimacy, or are they inside the scene and they're improvising off of it, and there's some confusion about that among the actors. So anyway, that popped into my head. That might be an interesting 5-minute or 10-minute script. Thanks.
Are there any more questions or comments or anything like that? Oh, okay. Well, this has been amazing. I'm so happy to have been able to be on this panel with these amazing women. And my closing words are, we are the industry. Fuck them all. Let's disrupt this shit. Woo woo.
We have one more slide that has like some resources. Actually, I think we have 2 more slides, but yeah, there's some resources. I just wanted to shout out to Association of Mental Health Coordinators. That's the even newer kid on the block as far as niche positions on film sets. This is a group who are now training others to be basically someone who either has a clinical background or has had some super solid training on how to support both the content of challenging scripts for cast and crew and the depiction of mental health issues, and their website has many amazing resources on it if you want to delve deeper into that. Yeah, so thank you everybody. I appreciate being on this panel with you both. It was amazing, and I'm going to hand it off to Megan.
Yeah, thanks. Also, I do that kind of stuff too. If now you know somebody. But anyway, I just want to close by saying that a little love letter to the artists in the room. I love that you exist, and I especially love that you exist in this moment. And I know it can feel like there's a lot that wants to oppress our voices and our joy and our creativity. And just a friendly reminder that the resistance is going to be led by joy and creativity, the ability to imagine a new world that's better and more inclusive of all of us. So do not let them steal your joy and your creativity, because we need you now more than ever. So keep creating, and it was a joy to meet you both and to be in community with you.